I don't like these movies.
Get real.
Dude, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume product. I watch my movies.
Having so much fun, man! Really?
Oh, this movie's too complicated.
So once again, no smoking in this theater.
Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of Idle Film Club, your Brainrot Girlfriend's favourite film podcast. I'm Gio.
And I'm Callum.
And after last week, it was a bit of a slog, but we're back and ready to talk about a fucking good movie this week.
We are. Before we get into that, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. We saw Interstellar yesterday.
Yeah, we went to the Prince Charles for a little date day.
It was nice.
It
We
was
saw it on
good.
70mm projection.
I've never seen it before.
I've seen it quite a few times.
As you know, probably I've brought it up numerous times. Not into space. It's just not my thing.
It's goofier than I remember. I still really like it. It made me cry. That movie gets to me sometimes. But
The daddy-daughter stuff is good.
yeah, it's not really as good as I remember it being. I can't lie.
I'm not a spectacle movie person.
It looks really good. I'm sure it's great in IMAX. The 70mm projection was nice, but I think it deserves a bit of a bigger screen.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. Usually I thought Inception was amazing.
Yeah. We saw that in 35, I think.
Yeah, but I feel like IMAX would have probably...
Well, yeah, it was fun nonetheless. It's a lovely cinema, the Prince
I love it. It's
Charles.
so fun. Every time we go, it's such a treat.
Always a packed crowd there.
Yeah, and it's nice. There's atmosphere. I love rewatching movies.
Mm.
Like, obviously, we mentioned last week we saw Romeo and Juliet. It's just fun to watch movies with an atmosphere and a crowd. And people are going because they like the movie.
Yeah.
People aren't going,
Unless they're you.
Unless
in
they're
which case
me.
their boyfriend's dragging them along. But this week,
I dragged you along to a movie.
yeah, I'm glad you did.
Dragged you kicking and screaming into
1992.
maybe one of my favourite movies. I'd only seen it once, but the first time I watched it, I loved it.
I'd never seen it. We're talking about Bad Lieutenant today.
Bad motherfucker.
Yeah, he is. It should be called Really Bad Lieutenant. Ha ha ha. I really, really love it.
I think it's fantastic.
Bad Lieutenant spells out themes of hypocrisy and sexual obsession with the intensity of a nightmare.
Just put $120,000 on tomorrow's game.
I don't know why I hadn't watched it yet. You had mentioned it to me. This is one of your films. There's a few films that you bring up a lot to me, which is like, oh, you should watch this. You'll love it. And I was just like, yeah, I'm sure it's violent and mean-spirited. In my head, it was just like, like Man Bites Dog or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, where it was just
Nasty.
nasty, yeah, sort of hinged on depravity and depravity alone, which
Yeah.
is, to be fair, we never finished Man Bites Dog, did we?
No.
But that movie was just like bleak. This is bleak and this is depraved, but there is a little something under the surface, a big something under the surface.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you want to, have you got any bit of history in this movie? Because I was going to research and you were like, no.
Yeah, because it's funny as fuck.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to learn what went behind this movie.
So
We also watched the sequel remake.
fucking hell.
Nothing to do with it.
We'll touch on that later,
We
but
will.
I fucking hated
I didn't
that
mind
movie.
it. I didn't mind it.
I went into it hoping it was going to be like a fun, like Nick Cage joint, fucking
National Treasure 2 Book of Secrets.
no,
The Wicker Man.
Wicker Man. Like
It is a bit like that.
it's not very fun though.
It is quite fun.
I absolutely hated it. I just don't think I'm a Nick Cage fan. But Longlegs truly will be
Oh, don't.
the more stuff that comes out about
I
that
know.
movie. I legitimately cannot wait.
When's it out? 12th.
So it's on our list.
It's on 12th
over
or
there.
13th.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
That might be our first movie back,
It might, but we've also got to cover Pearl, which comes Maxine, which comes out
Yeah,
before
true.
that. It's a big ass summer for Idle
Yeah.
Film Club. Anyway, strap in.
Fucking scumbags. You fucking scumbags.
Bad Lieutenant was released in 1992. Abel Ferrara directed it.
Yes.
You may be familiar with Abel Ferrara if you're into like sleazy underground cinema. Distributed by Ares Films, an 18 a hard fucking 18, this movie.
NC-17.
Truly is. An hour and 36 minutes, cost 1 million to make. I believe it made 2 million at the box office.
This isn't a money movie, is it?
It is not a money movie.
This is art.
So this sits at a 7 on IMDb and has a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
Bit of a cult classic, isn't it?
I know Roger Ebert gave it 4.
Really?
I think the people that liked it loved it, but obviously it is controversial for...
And Ebert 4 is very good.
Yeah.
Because he rates them on 4, doesn't he? So that's full marks.
Yeah, full marks from Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert of At the Movies says, Bad Lieutenant is my own choice as the best discovery of the Cannes Film Festival.
Mark Kermode obviously really liked this movie. We'll talk about him in a bit. So just to give you a bit of background into the sort of casting and production of this movie, the lead role was originally going to be given to Christopher Walken,
Foo Fighters.
but he pulled out at the last minute. I'm very glad that he did.
Oh,
I am
see, you
not
don't
a
like
Christopher
Walken.
Walken fan.
We've been, funny enough, talking about Christopher Walken. So I saw a clip about someone...
Oh, Mel Gibson.
Yeah, and then I got into a bit of Christopher Walken hole, and I showed you that video of Mel Gibson claiming that Christopher Walken is the Antichrist and he floats.
He is literally like an evil Willem Dafoe.
He is, yeah.
Like Willem
your
Dafoe.
dog.
Willem Dafoe is like scary and weird, but he seems like a really nice guy. Christopher Walken seems like he might legitimately stab you.
Yeah, I love people coming up to... Willem Dafoe is just always blazed in New
Yeah.
York, just wandering around wearing like Prada.
Man's living the dream. That video of him, I think I reposted it on the Idle Film Club TikTok.
It's so funny. He's just like in the middle of the street, and then it's like, "What's your outfit?" He just talks it through. And he's just like, "Ha ha 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 ha."
So
Just clearly fucking blazed.
I love him so much.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good.
What's your name and where you from?
Willem Dafoe. I'm from Wisconsin.
Ooh, Wisconsin is in the house. Stop playing with them.
I'm from Rome. Let's
Okay. Shout out to Rome.
So anyway, Willem Dafoe's evil twin, Christopher Walken,
He turned it down.
according to Abel Ferrara, he basically refused to make the film because he didn't like the scene where the protagonist sees a vision of Jesus Christ.
I don't like the scene with Jesus Christ.
Awful.
That's what he does.
Talk to Jesus.
Ferrara, you'll see throughout this reading of my notes that guy has a lot of opinions on a lot of things.
Oh, good. He is proto Vincent Gallo. I think you said that, and
He's grew up in the Bronx.
yeah.
Raised Christian.
Yeah.
He is
He's a hard ass.
He is the definition of a New York man. He wrote to me, Jesus Christ is an overused literary device. That's when I knew he wasn't right for the part with an attitude like that.
God. Fuck around and find out.
Yeah. So then obviously Harvey Keitel was considered for the role. Apparently the first time Harvey Keitel read the script, he gave up after 15 pages, stating that it was quote unquote a piece of junk. He then read the scenes with the nun's rape and was taken in by her story. And then...
Well, that is the heart of the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously I will put a little bit in the description, but there is going to be discussions of sexual assault, as this is the crux of the movie, basically.
Yeah. Sexual assault, drug use.
Spoiler warnings. Spoiler
cops.
warnings? Trigger warnings for pretty much everything in this movie.
Yeah, if you're faint of heart, don't watch this movie. Don't listen to this podcast.
You ain't going to like it. So the screenplay was written by Abel Ferrara and Zoe Lund. Have you ever heard of her?
No, but I did see in the Wikipedia. I did a quick this morning Wikipedia dive, not into the production or anything, just a general base.
Yeah.
And I saw that
Just to get a base.
She stars in it as well, doesn't she?
Yeah. So she's
a model.
Model, actress.
A multi-hyphener.
Lund basically claims to have done a lot of the heavy lifting and that Ferrara barely did anything.
Oh, really?
Other sources claim that Lund's ex-boyfriend, he was reported to have written the majority of the script, and apparently there's evidence to prove this. So who knows?
God.
Who knows actually what went on behind, that.
Yeah.
But the screenplay was originally only 65 pages long. And obviously, a 65-page script means a 65-minute
Yeah, general rule of thumb.
And this basically formed the bare bones of the movie, with things sort of being changed as they went along. It was very on the fly. They were sort of constantly rewriting and sort of changing things as they went. They would just have like a basis of being like, this is the general plot, and then they would just sort of improvise from
Which
there.
makes sense, because when you watch the movie, it is very I mean, there is, again, we'll get into it when the plot, but there's an overlying sort of narrative and then just scenes of degeneracy pretty much sprinkled throughout.
Yeah, and the movie was basically inspired by a nun who was raped by two men in New York City.
Right.
So this comes from a sort of real place. And I think you can tell.
Yeah.
I think a lot of good movies came out in 1992.
Yeah, it was a good year for cinema.
And I think the early 90s, you could tell that the world was in a very specific place.
Especially New York.
In New York, and also Hollywood and movies in general. I think Basic Instinct maybe was 92. Reservoir Dogs was 92. So a lot of like big American landmark cinema sort of coming out around this time.
Shit. You shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
Would you like to get into the plot?
Sure thing. Let's do a recap of the plot of Bad Lieutenant.
This guy will come by your house and blow your house up with your wife and kids and everybody in it. You know that, right? No one can kill me.
I'm just going to call... He's unnamed, by the way.
He
so I'm
is
just going to call him...
only referred to in the credits as Lieutenant.
So I'm going to call him Lieutenant. I'm not going to call him Bad Lieutenant. just assume every time I say Lieutenant, he is being bad.
He's always being bad. He's barely being a lieutenant, but he's always bad.
So our titular Bad Lieutenant, played by Harvey Keitel, Quentin Tarantino alumni. Go check those out. Plug in this in the plot. He drops his children at their Catholic school, his two sons. He has a daughter as well. But he drops their two sons at their Catholic school and then snorts a fat bump of coke in the car.
I mean, within like 3 seconds, you can already tell that this guy might be the worst person who's ever lived.
Oh, yeah.
He's like swearing at his kids and like doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But he's taking them to a Catholic school, obviously.
Hey, listen to me. I'm the boss, not Aunt Wendy. When it's your turn to use the bathroom, you tell Aunt Wendy to get the fuck out of the bathroom. What are you, men or mice? She's hogging the bathroom. Call me, I'll throw her the fuck out.
He then heads to a crime scene where he finds a bag of drugs. He steals those and he gives them to a drug dealer who is going to sell the drugs and give Lieutenant some money in a couple of days after he sells them. He smokes crack with the dealer as well.
Oh, yeah. Police business.
Yeah. There's a woman's like, speaks Spanish and she's like, police business.
And then it goes back to smoking his crack.
Yeah.
Get back. Police activity.
Then we have a big sex portion of the movie. He has a long three-way where he's just getting drunk and fucked up. He then goes and smokes heroin with a red-headed sex worker who I assume is
Zoe Lund, yeah.
Yeah, because she is the only person in this movie that looks like a model. So he smokes some heroin with her after his three-way with another couple of people.
I think they would... They're
just sex
unrelated
workers,
sex workers, I think.
And while all this is happening, a nun is being attacked and raped in a church by two boys.
I mean, yeah.
It's parallel story. The lieutenant has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, no, I just mean that the scene is incredibly... It is horrible.
It's horrible,
It's absolutely
harrowing.
horrific.
So also a bit of context for the film. It's set to the backdrop of World Series playoffs, Major League Baseball. So how baseball works is there's 7 games in a series.
You're wearing a Phillies hat today.
I'm wearing a Phillies hat. I should be wearing my, I don't know.
New York Mets.
So yeah, there's 7 games. It's basically first to 4 wins the series and goes on. So when we start the movie, it's the New York Mets versus the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are up 3-0. So they win another game and the Mets are out. However, if the Mets win 4 games on the trot, the Mets go through. So it's likely that the Dodgers are going to win. And he's betting on these games as we go along.
And it does an excellent job.
Oh, yeah. It's a great framing device,
It is so good.
Because day by day he's getting... Oh, we'll go into it. But yeah. So the lieutenant tells people to bet on the Mets. He's like, oh, they need to keep the series going. It makes money. They want the series to go as long as possible. However, he bets on the Dodgers, which he loses. He bets $15,000. He loses, and then he meets up with his friend, played by Brad Dourif, voice of Chucky.
Love him. Fiona Dourif was in last week's episode.
She was in Tenet. Funny enough. But yeah, so Brad Dourif is his friend who is liaising with the bookie.
He's wonderful.
He's great.
I love Brad Dourif so much.
The series is now 3-1. He owes the bookie $15,000 but goes double or nothing, which Dourif accepts and the bookie accepts.
Because as the plot progresses, he becomes more and more uncomfortable with being the...
He's betting sums and he doesn't have the money to show for it.
Yeah, and he's like, no, these guys will fuck you up.
So the lieutenant goes to the hospital and spies on the nun's examination. He finds out she was penetrated by a crucifix, and obviously he is a Catholic. He's a bad Catholic, and I think he sort of denounces God. There's scenes I think when he's talking about the betting where he says, like, girls get raped every day in the Catholic Church, and suddenly they care because it's a woman in a penguin suit. And they were like, well, what the fuck?
Girls get raped every day. Now they're gonna put up 50 G's just because these chicks wear penguin suits.
What is your fucking problem?
Yeah, and the other people who he works with are obviously quite religious, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, he's an incredibly jaded and...
Oh, he's very jaded. You can tell there's sort of history of abuse there.
Yeah.
It's not explicitly said, but...
Yeah, and it's not surprising that
of course not.
He feels as cynical. I mean, this guy is a monster, don't get me wrong, but this is what the movie's all about.
Church is a racket.
So what? Are you a Catholic?
I'm a Catholic.
He then pulls two girls over who are driving their father's car without a license. After a long bit of back and forth, he forces them to expose themselves and he masturbates over them in a very brutal scene. There's just the constant threat of violence.
Yeah,
is
and
palpable.
it's done in a way where there's nothing actually visually explicit about the scene, yet it's so incredibly dehumanizing
Yeah, it's
and
horrible.
I don't want to say worse, but it's almost like...
It's equal to. Those girls were raped.
It's equally as visceral without having any
definitely.
physical contact is, I think, the best way to put it. And it goes on for a very long time. It's a long scene.
So the Dodgers lose their next game again, meaning the lieutenant owes the bookie $30,000 now.
Yeah.
When he finds this out, he's driving through Times Square in his car, and he finds it on the radio, and he pulls a gun out and just shoots his car stereo. Again, he doubles his bet. He goes double or nothing, and he finds out they lose in a bar. Like they've lost again, so now it's 3-3, and he's down $60,000. He tries to double his bet again in the bar, and then Brad Dourif is like, "I can't do that. These people will kill you. They don't care that you're a cop. These people will kill you." And again, he shows up to these meetings with fucking no money.
Yeah.
You know, the general. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a high stakes gambler. I don't have the money to be a high stakes gambler.
Neither does he.
No, exactly, but. When you're dealing with, like, you watch something like Uncut Gems, right? And stuff like that. It's very interesting gambling to me. But I get the impression that you can do that sort of thing, double or nothing, but at least square up some money to prove you're good for it. Like, you can't just keep going double or nothing, double or nothing.
That's why Brad Dourif gets so uncomfortable, because the smaller bet, and we see that when I'm not sure what his name is, but his, like, drug dealer, the guy, sells the bag of drugs. He gets like 30 grand. So he is working with big money because drugs are involved.
But
however,
he's also gambling money like it.
He doesn't have.
Yes.
Come on, this ain't no fucking joke anymore, seriously. Just put $120,000 on tomorrow's game. Dude, you're a fucking joke, you know that?
The lieutenant picks up again the $30,000 from the drug dealer we saw at the start of the movie. He calls the bookie personally because Brad Dourif's like, I'm done. You can call him personally if you want. He wants to personally place a bet, and the bookie tells him to meet him outside Madison Square Garden. He then goes to see the nun, and he promises her he'll punish his abusers and get retribution. She insists that she has forgiven them. And I guess this is the scene of Bad Lieutenant for me, is this whole scene play out in the church. He gets very upset, and I think he says to her, like, this isn't just about you. There are other girls, there are other nuns. Just because you're okay with it, sort of. I'm paraphrasing here. I think he says, like, there are other virgins in the world. Like, there's old ladies who will have heart attacks if they're raped. Sort of, this is on your hands.
Do you have the right to let these boys go free? Can you bear the burden, sister?
I think it's done so well.
It is.
In the sense that this man is not a good man. He's not a moral man.
Yeah.
But in this moment, you understand where he's coming from. And he has the opinion of a cop.
But again, as someone who grew up reading the Bible a lot, my family are very religious, but...
The way she talks about her belief is scary.
But no, this plays out like a Bible passage.
Yeah.
This plays out like a parable. It's very New Testament, it's very Christian, where it's like the bad person comes to the holy person And it's like, what about this? You know, and then it'll usually be Jesus or someone.
Yeah.
Or it's very Christ-like to be like, no, I've forgiven them already.
But this is what I mean.
This is turn the other cheek, and it goes very extreme, and it reads like that. Every line she says is like that.
They did not love me, but I ought to have loved them. For Jesus loved those who reviled him.
The justification for her, but as someone who's not religious, that is so frightening to me.
Yeah, it makes, and again, it's one of those things where it's very old-timey Christian, where this isn't Old Testament eye for an eye. This is New Testament, like, bless them.
Yeah.
You know?
She feels sorry for them.
Yeah,
She's like,
yeah.
these poor boys, they're good people. Like, they had urges. And it's like, no, these
well,
people are
again,
monsters.
But that's the crux of, I guess, that's what Christianity is.
They came to me as the needy do. And like many of the needy, they were rude. Like all the needy they took. And like all the needy they needed.
Like, he's a Christian
Yeah,
in
but
his own warped, terrible way. But you can obviously tell he grew up Catholic. His kids go to a Catholic school.
yes.
Like, he's a terrible, awful person who his beliefs and what he does not align with Christianity. But he is a religious man. And in that moment, you see that her faith and her devotion is at a level that
It's Christ-like.
no one other than a nun would feel. And I think
that just pure forgiveness.
yeah, it's like I wouldn't.
No, of course not. It's very, she at no point breaks.
No.
She is so devout and
It's
so righteous.
so crazy.
That she is, again, literally turning the other cheek.
Mm.
And he tries to reason with her. And it is like reasoning with Christ. You don't,
She's
it's
made up her
gospel.
mind.
It is gospel, you know what I mean?
And he looks, it didn't happen to him. So who is he to
Yes.
be like, but
and he raises good points. You know
he
what I mean? Like,
does.
these kids are rapists. If they're going to rape a nun, they're going to go on and rape someone else.
for sure. And it's
Morality
such
wise,
a good
it's
scene.
very interesting. He then has a breakdown in the church and sees an apparition of Christ, which again is the scene you mentioned Walken didn't like. He curses him. It's a long rant where Christ doesn't say anything.
No, he just is there.
He's just there. He calls him a rat fuck about 100. You rat fuck.
You rat fuck.
You got something that you want to say to me? You fuck. You rat fuck. You rat fuck.
Again, it's so well written and so well performed because he keeps going, "Where were you? Where were you?"
Harvey Keitel.
Which it could be referring.
So good.
It could be referring to the rape of the nun, or the way he's getting about it. I get the impression he was
a victim of
victim of sexual abuse in the church. Just the way it feels personal to him.
Again, you can take whatever you want from this. Until you mentioned it earlier, I was like, oh, do you know what? I didn't even think about that angle. But he was a young boy.
It's just the way he keeps going and how passionate he gets about the rape of the nun. I think he's speaking from personal experience. Again, I'm glad it's not explicitly said.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Where were you? Where the fuck were you? Where were you?
He then goes from cursing Christ to begging for forgiveness.
He's
admitting
just crying.
he sort of confesses to all his sins, admits he's been a bad person, and begs Christ for forgiveness, kisses his feet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did so many bad things.
The apparition goes, and it turns out the person he's talking to is an older woman who is carrying a golden chalice, which was stolen from the church during the attack on the nun.
Because in the conversation where they're talking about the rape, one of the other cops mentions that they even stole a chalice, sort of thing, as if that's just another
it's sacrilegious.
These rapists have absolutely no respect for the church as an institution, and to some people, these things
That's your
are
life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It turns out it was pawned at her husband's pawn shop. She agrees, the woman, to help him try and track down who sold it to her husband. And he finds the two boys in a crack, then he tracks them down in the end, handcuffs them. He obviously smokes some crack.
With them, obviously.
Yeah, and he listens to the New York Mets turn it around in a historical 4-3 comeback in a series. He's now down a lot of money. He drives them to a bus station, gives them the $30,000 he got from the drug deal, and says basically that they're not welcome in New York anymore and that they get on the bus and leave.
You get on this fucking bus. man. Because your life ain't worth shit in this town.
He's basically, again, that forgiveness, that turning the other cheek. He's clearly trying to do the Christ-like thing.
And also when the woman brings back the chalice, she's like, I know what this is and it deserves to be in church.
Yeah, of course.
And
she stole it, didn't she? Back.
Yeah, the compounding of the vision of Christ and the forgiveness of the nun, and the woman brings back the chalice because she knows how much. And
she's a righteous woman as well.
Exactly,
clearly.
and all this compounding of religion and faith reaches this point.
Yeah.
And then he does the forgiveness, and it's like, oh my God. I was floored the first time I watched it. It's crazy.
He then leaves and parks his car in front of Penn Station and gets shot in a drive-by shooting, and that's where the movie ends. He gets shot in the head.
Hey, cops!
And you just see like a still shot, and there's people slowly starting to come around the car, and I genuinely think this movie is amazing.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece, I think.
It's so good.
I do love a bit of Catholicism in my movies. I'm a big Exorcist fan.
Oh, I said to you when we were watching it, no one blasphemes quite like someone who grew up Catholic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so blasphemous.
But in a way where it still has, there is still good versus evil in this world. In this world, the righteous do prevail. And there's no point in this movie where the nun breaks down and goes like, fuck you, I'm just trying to do my best. No, she genuinely believes
it.
Even because he
100%.
listens into her confession as well, and she says the same thing. So she's not putting airs on. She's just, again, you can debate this till the cows come home about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. However, it's matter of fact in this movie.
Yeah.
Christ exists, God exists, the righteous exist.
You do believe in God, don't you? That Jesus Christ died for your sins?
Everything in this world is black and white, in the sense of New York City as a city is fundamentally broken. There's so much crime, there's so much violence, there's so much just degeneracy. The police are corrupt. He barely does any police work.
No.
And this is an issue
He'll
that...
rock up to a crime scene, steal drugs and go and smoke them.
Yeah, that's literally all he does.
Yeah.
He'll turn up to a crime scene and just go and
Pillage
pretend to
it.
care
Yeah.
and then just steal their drugs and leave.
Pull girls over, steal evidence.
Yeah, it's
like-
just, he is the
Brad
definition of a
Dourif
bad
another
lieutenant.
police
No,
officer?
I think he's just a rookie. There's also a scene where an Asian supermarket owner says that two black guys
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about
steal money at the register or
that.
something.
Yeah, $500.
And there's another cop there. He says to the other cop, like, go take the shop owner down to the station and get his testimony. And then when the two guys leave, he's just like, give me the money you stole, and just walks away.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
just
no, you're not before like stealing shit from the shop in front of the daughter.
And the daughter's just staring at him, and he's like, oh, your dad will be back soon. It's like, this guy is the definition of amoral. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Your daddy be right back.
To go back to the framing device of the baseball,
so
I think it
good.
works on multiple levels because he is obviously a New Yorker.
Yeah, it's very intrinsic to New York identity.
However, he at no point bets on the Mets. Every time he needs the Mets to lose, he's going against his own people. He's going against the city. Because at the end, everyone's celebrating because the Mets have pulled off a historic win. And he is just like, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
The windup and the pitch on the way. Strike recalled. The Mets win it. Harris doesn't like it, but it's all over.
And every time he never bets for the Mets to win, which I think is interesting. He's not happy when they win, obviously. And
He's a
just,
traitor in
he's a traitor,
every sense of the term. He's a traitor to religion.
Yeah.
He's a traitor to the police force.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say I'd say he's probably, we laughed during it and we were like literally the least corrupt NYPD officer.
Oh yeah, we're not fans of the police on this podcast.
But like,
enemies of the pod, everyone.
Enemies of the pod, the state police.
Yeah, the NYPD, enemies of the pod. Bob Peacock.
Oh, mate, we've seen so many English bobbies recently. It's actually crazy. Anyway, I don't care to talk about the police, but it shows a pretty effectual depiction of what I imagine the NYPD is like in the 90s. It's just like...
It's so dingy. They're just fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, they're chasing their tails constantly. They cannot keep up with the level of, like, corruption. And I'm not surprised if Bad Lieutenant is anything to go by. It's so funny how little police work he does. He is never... He always just rocks up high.
At no point do you ever see him sit at a desk.
No, he's just like coming into a crime scene, sees people have been shot, and then goes... Because there's one point where, I think, if I'm remembering rightly, she's like a transgender sex worker, right? And she sort of says to him, oh, there's a key in the back of the car. And he's like, yeah, excuse me, guys, I'm just going to go check it out. Yeah. Goes into the car, pockets the drugs, and then when he gets out of the car, they fall out.
Yeah, and he's just like, and then he's like, put this in evidence.
Yeah, it's like,
What's that? Got the key of coke. Put in evidence.
And it's so bad because he literally leans over to check like the pockets of the corpse. And just like, it's so bad. He's just awful.
He is a really bad lieutenant.
I mean, the drug use in this movie not only extends to the movie, but Abel Ferrara admitted in a 2012 interview that he was using drugs during the making of the film.
Wow, I never would have guessed.
I'm so shocked.
What? Nah, I never knew that.
And Zoe Lund, who we talked about earlier, there's a very extended scene when... Because he smokes crack and he smokes heroin, but then there's a scene towards the end where he actually injects heroin. The scene that plays out, she actually shot up.
Oh my God.
She was basically a heroin advocate and petitioned for it to be recreationally used in America.
Right, a bit of a Nico sort of vibe.
Yeah, she died at 37 from complications of prolonged cocaine use.
Wow.
Not heroin use, weirdly.
Yeah.
You'd feel like that was more destructive. But this scene, we'll go on to talk about the censorship of this movie because I think you can't...
Yeah.
It's almost more interesting than the movie itself, which is already very interesting. Yeah. But Ferrara said of Zoe that she was one of these people who thought heroin was the greatest thing in the world, and she did until the day she died. She was down on coke, down on everything, but, heroin was the elixir of life for her. And she basically taught Harvey Keitel the mannerisms of someone who is shooting up. But that scene in Zoe's apartment is so crazy.
It is crazy. There's another thing about this movie is, you think about drug movies, right? If I say name a heroin movie, what do you say?
Pulp Fiction or Trainspotting.
Those are the exact two I had in mind, right?
Well, we'll talk about those shortly.
Where they're so stylized and less so Trainspotting.
Yeah, I don't agree with Trainspotting, but
it still has that fisheye lens, has that Danny Boyle-isms to it, whereas this is so matter of fact.
Yeah, and in this movie, I do not think for 1 second that it glamorizes the use of any of these drugs.
Hell no, not at all. Especially when you say like a heroin advocate worked on the movie. Like, no, it feels dingy. It feels gross.
It is exactly what I imagine heroin users. And she is just always just like, it's like talking to a ghost. And he is a literal ghost. Like, he just floats around.
Vampires are lucky. They can feed on others. We gotta eat away at ourselves.
So obviously with how dramatic the drug use and also the sexual violence is in this movie, this caused quite a furore when it came to sort of movie censorship and sort of distribution post cinema releases. So it was originally released uncut as an NC-17 in America due to drug use and violence, and also remained uncut for its UK cinema release, which was sort of 1992 and 1993. In the USA, Blockbuster and Hollywood Video basically refused to stock the movie as per their policy, which prohibits the sale or rental of NC-17 movies.
Yeah.
So basically an R-rated cut of the movie was made specifically for the home rental market.
Okay.
So this cut out sort of 8 minutes or so of footage and had 3 additional minutes of footage added to the movie.
Right.
Which is a bit weird and a bit of a red flag. People assume that this is to sort of lighten the tone of the movie, which is just like, that's not the point of this movie. Apparently, when Christopher Walken was set to star, it was a comedy.
Oh my god!
Which,
like Bad Santa.
Which, like, what? How? But apparently Harvey Keitel brought something very different to the role.
Yeah.
And thank God, because what?
Yeah.
This movie ain't funny.
No.
You'll be intrigued to know that the car scene is almost entirely removed from the the R-rated cut of the movie.
Okay.
Again, it's such a pivotal moment.
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah. Again,
Just rent another movie. I get they want to make their money, but
yeah, you can't cut the soul out of a movie and then be like, oh, but we can.
this is the same movie. Just call it Lieutenant. Cut the bad stuff out of it.
Several of those bad things, such as a scene of the preparation and injection of heroin involving Lund and Keitel, got Ferrara's film into trouble with British censors who cut it for home viewing after the Video Recordings Act was needlessly tightened up in the mid-90s.
So in the UK, the film, as we said, passed uncut for an 18 rating for cinemas, but when it came to the home video release, this is where things got problematic.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in the history of the BBFC and the MPAA. I find movie censorship very interesting. I did a lot of research on it, sort of when I was doing my dissertation and things like that. So it's something that I find particularly interesting.
Yes.
It's a bit nerdy. I'm not sure if anyone else... I might do an episode on it at some point, so if anyone would be interested in that, let me know. But when it came to sort of the home video release, the head of the BBFC, James Furman, who, if you know a little bit about the history of the BBFC and the video nasty shit, you'll probably be familiar with the name, but basically the rating was pulled at the last minute just before it was about to go on sale for sort of the home video market. In around the early 90s, 92, 93, 94, there was a massive panic sort of surrounding the cultural censorship that was happening at that time. So obviously the video nasties era of movies is sort of considered the 80s. There was the whole moral panic surrounding like Thatcher, Britain.
Movies like Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, and the issue with so many of the video nasties was that they weren't being watched, they were just being banned based on their titles. So we sort of had the aftermath of this like huge cultural uproar regarding like, trying to think, there's one woman's name and she was basically, I want to say her name was Mary something, but she was like a crusader for like, won't someone think of the children sort of
real
shit.
Helen Lovejoy we bring up a lot.
Exactly.
I have never seen a video nasty. I wouldn't. I have far too much.
How can you judge on a video nasty?
Oh,
Have you never
easy.
seen one?
Look, if somebody tells me, as we get these reports in from Europe, from America, and from this country, that a particular video nasty contains that, and that, I actually don't need to see visually what I know is in that film.
So this is sort of coming shortly after the cultural hysteria of the moral panic surrounding the video nasty sort of died down.
A great movie to watch, by the way, set around this time is
Censors,
is
fabulous.
really good. It's a horror movie set around the BBFC.
If you're interested in that, do watch Censor, it is good. And the BBFC were basically, at this point, so the early 90s, 92, 93, were waiting for Parliament to decide on a legislation regarding video violence. Mark Kermode did a whole segment for a TV interview, basically not petitioning, but stating why he was against video releases facing more stringent censorship than sort of the cinema releases.
We certainly saw in 1982 a series of videos which depicted mutilation, it depicted death, it depicted violence, which we felt enough was enough and took action to stop the growing spread of this form of violence.
I can understand a lot of the reasons why the BBFC were doing what they were doing.
I mean, when you lay it out the way they were laying it out, as people can rewind and rewatch these things, yeah, that makes sense, but is anyone doing that?
Well,
that's the real,
the main issue that people were facing with the rise of the home video market and Blockbuster and things like this, people were having access to movies, and the BBFC sort of, their line of reasoning was that when you watch a movie in a cinema, you're seeing it with other people, there's a bouncer who obviously checks people have tickets, and you have the flow of the movie. And if there's sort of crazy scenes or controversial scenes, you can't pause, you can't rewind them, you can't can't revisit them.
And kids can't find it, under your bed and watch Cannibal Holocaust.
So
Or wasn't the Evil Dead a video? No?
yeah, so many movies like Driller Killer, things like that. I'm pretty
Which
sure.
another Abel Ferrara, isn't it?
And like Slumber Party Massacre, all of these movies, again, with the rise of movies like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, slashers were huge. And so the 80s, the late 80s, sort of 1980 was when the Friday movie came out. 1984 was the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Bear this in mind and watch Slumber Party Massacre. And you'll be just like, what?
It's great. I love that movie. But yeah, there was a slew of direct-to-video shit, just like exploitative. Yeah, just like Italian sleazy movies where girls get their tits out and they get hacked to pieces. So anyway, when this movie came out for video release, they made 1 minute and 47 worth of cuts. One was basically referring to the pubic hair and the buttocks of the rapist during the rape scene.
Okay.
This was essentially, according to James Furman, to try and take the sexuality, quote unquote, out of the scene.
Will make that make sense.
And the heroin scene was significantly shortened because they claimed that it was actually instructional. And
fair enough,
to
I
be
get
fair,
it.
they're not wrong.
Yeah.
And one major trampling of a drug injection scene designed to minimise the on-screen process of mainlining, which was considered both fetishistic and instructional.
We saw a lot of heroin movies around this time. Trainspotting, Pulp Fiction. I think there was another one called Trash, which was, I think, an Andy Warhol movie. And these cuts were consistent with what was cut out of those movies as well. So basically the background as to why this post-video nasty resurgence came in was obviously the legislation was being debated in the wake of the Jamie Bulger case, which I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to give voice to it. But essentially, if you don't know, a crime was committed where two 10-year-old boys, I think they were 10, abducted, I think he was 2, maybe, a kid called Jamie Bulger. Basically, they tortured and murdered him, but they claimed to have been inspired by Child's Play 3.
Yes.
So this was a whole thing. People were terrified of kids and their desensitization to media violence.
Yeah, and it is a very convenient thing for the government.
Of course.
To
rather than addressing the real systemic issues, they would rather blame it on...
Yes, of course they would. They've been doing that forever. And if you look in the wake of things like later on Columbine and things like that, the films, video games, media will always be the first to be blamed, which is wrong.
And what they eventually found out was that this was absolute bullshit.
Yeah, of course it
And
was.
if you've seen Child's Play 3, A, it's a fucking dreadful movie.
It's
and
basically
B,
a comedy.
It's not very violent.
No.
It was a convenient scapegoat for this moral panic. And most moral panic is centered around nonsense.
It's the same as, well, very similar to the whole razor blade and Halloween candy sort of thing, where kids people stop sending their kids out to go trick-or-treating because stories of razor blades appearing in Halloween candy never happened, was complete urban legend.
Yeah.
No case has ever been like that. No kid has ever died from Halloween candy.
Yeah.
I think it happened once and it was a family member who poisoned a kid. It's just made up things.
Yeah, so there was understandably quite a cultural shift towards violence in media, and, we obviously weren't alive at this time, but it's absolutely understandable why people felt the way they did.
Oh, 100%. If you're faced with those facts, well, that story, and you're being told certain things, of course.
The fact of the matter is that these two kids were just evil.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, again...
Brad Dourif had to take the blame.
Poor Brad Dourif, who was already in this movie. But anyway, so this was the first video released after this new legislation was passed.
Okay.
So in the Criminal Justice Act of 1994, they basically sort of added a few revisions regarding home media, and the BBFC was sort of waiting for this to be passed before they would. So movies like Reservoir Dogs, this movie, a few others were basically shelved for home video release until they found out about what this new legislation was going to be.
Okay.
So, in essence, I do think that it seems like such a trivial issue compared to what the internet did for access to violent media.
Oh, yeah.
But
It seems so quaint now, doesn't it? Videotapes.
Yeah, but, I mean...
Videotapes of actual movies.
Yeah,
and now everyone has porn in their pocket.
Understandably, it was sort of the proto, it was the first, the home video market was becoming such a big thing. And if you believe that video violence causes people to be degenerates, you can understand why people were sort of scared and shocked and all this stuff. So
Especially with a case as visceral as...
Yeah, and this was something that hit extremely close to home for a lot of people. And people still talk about it today.
Yeah.
Those two fucking awful human beings are always in the news.
Yeah.
You always hear about it. So although it was a big thing when it happened, it's still a big thing today because it is one of the worst things to ever happen. And it was horrible. And the fact that children could be capable of evil was something that people weren't ready to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
But
and now we haven't gone 2 years without a weekly toddler shooting someone.
In America. We also saw that this movie was completely banned in Ireland. Ireland?
Do you think film censorship in Ireland is too strict?
I do actually, yes. I think it's a great thing that they do. It's nearly time they've done something about it.
You'd like to see it loosened up a bit more?
I would indeed, yes. I said we're getting too many reissues in Dublin Fair.
The Irish Film Censor Board basically were like, no.
Well, good luck showing that in a Catholic country.
Well, Seamus Smith, who was the head of the Irish Film Board, took issue with the demeaning treatment of women.
Right.
And I was like, I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that it's so blasphemous.
Well, this is where I disagree with a lot of people. It has Catholic themes. It's pro-Jesus, this movie. It's pro-forgiveness.
It's the same way in The Exorcist is pro-Catholic.
Exorcist is very pro-Catholic. The Exorcist is very pro-God. It's good versus evil and good wins. Righteousness wins because humble, righteous people...
He's not portrayed as a hero. He's the villain.
And only when he at no point does he accept Christ in this movie.
Yeah.
He accepts Christ and then starts forgiving and then dies.
Yeah.
At no point is he pretending he's not a priest.
It's the same way that people are like, The Exorcist is blasphemy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it is blasphemy.
Yeah, it's blasphemous for a point.
Yeah. It's
because to demonstrate evil.
It blasphemes to show the redemptive nature of Catholicism.
And the most evil thing, this is why people think it's scary. The most evil thing you put to screen is blasphemy.
Yeah,
It's why people find Rosemary's Baby so scary.
Yeah.
It's because it's blasphemous. I'm sorry.
God is dead! Satan lives! The year is won!
You can have crazy, like The Nun, right? You know the movie The Nun?
Yeah.
No Catholic themes in those movies.
The Pope's exorcism.
It's just
the
a
Catholics win.
It's just a scary nun.
Yeah.
But to be fair, those Conjuring movies again very pro-God, pro-Catholic.
Yeah.
But they're not scary because they're not blasphemous.
No.
The cross turns upside down. I'm sorry. Reagan masturbates with a cross. A woman gets penetrated with a cross in this movie. That is scary. And that is evil.
Yeah, I mean, as a woman, this isn't an easy watch.
Oh, by no means. And I'm not a woman.
But if you personally take issue with the depictions of that, I can't sit here and be like, no, you're wrong. I just think that...
Oh, no, at no point. And I think...
Sometimes the ends justify the means.
And I will always be a firm believer in... This shouldn't be, it shouldn't be government mandated that you should sit down and watch this movie.
Absolutely
or you
not.
should sit down and watch The Exorcist or Reservoir Dogs. No, these movies, some people won't like it, some people it will affect them. And for good reason. If you can't compartmentalise what's going on screen, if you can't... And it's not a fault of the person.
No.
It's just how people's brains work. And yeah.
I don't watch movies about, real life...
Yeah, you don't watch Holocaust movies, you don't watch 9/11 docs.
I don't like true crime.
Like that.
I
Yeah.
don't like things like that. It scares me and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Horror and movies are a way, fictional stories are a way for me to compartmentalise my fear of death.
Yeah.
And but for some people that's not what they want to see.
And this is, again, I think Mark Kermode sums it up perfectly when he says movies, especially horror movies, they're masochistic. They're not sadistic by any means. No one watches a horror movie to get... Well, I'm sure...
Well, movies aren't intrinsically sadistic.
No.
Some filmmakers cross that line, and there are examples of movies where we personally will not endorse them. Or
No. Certain movies, French movies from 2009, starring Xavier Dolan at the start of the movie, that got remade in 2011, I think is a despicable piece of shit.
I will not even name it because I feel so viscerally that it is the most despicable thing ever put to screen.
And
however, I'm never going to watch it again.
No, yeah, and I think people should have the right to watch that movie.
I
and
don't
also,
agree
before
with
you go,
it.
oh, sorry, you're soft. No, I'm not soft, thank you. I'll watch anything,
I just
not
hate
movies that
glorify women being tortured.
Yeah.
I won't
not a movie
do
that
it.
shoots torture sexually. Sorry, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. However, everyone has their boundaries, and this is a movie about redemption and faith and Catholicism and the complexities of religion.
Yes.
And anyway, even 10 years later, when this got a DVD release, it was still banned in Ireland. So, but if you ever noticed, were you ever interested as a kid when you got DVDs?
Oh, yes.
The UK versus
Yes.
Ireland.
Very. I was
Ireland
obsessed with that.
Is always higher. They are just far more conservative
Although there were
in
some
there.
things that weren't.
And every time I got one, I was like, "Ooh!"
And one I very much remember being the UK, and my dad tells me this a lot. When I got the Karate Kid DVD,
Yeah.
Ralph Macchio, the original Karate Kid, I loved it as a kid. That's a 15 DVD release because the UK had such a hard-on for martial arts.
This is also such an interesting part of the history of the BBFC and how ridiculous it got.
Because do you remember because you know Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
this is exactly what I was going to bring up.
Yes, yeah. My dad always tells me
Crazy.
when he remembers when they changed it to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
In the wake of the Video Nasty and the Moral Panic and post 90s Jamie Bolger and all this shit, they were so scared of violence that nunchucks were getting it from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies got vetoed because they were like, it's scary. It's like it's a fucking movie about Ninja
It's
Turtles.
a Saturday morning cartoon to sell ad slots.
It ain't that deep. They want you to buy the toys.
I think it was like PG in Ireland and Karate
Yeah.
Kid. Karate Kid is like the least violent movie
It's
I've ever.
so
I watched it when
crazy.
I was a pussy as a kid, and my parents were again, like I said, raised religious. They
Yeah.
weren't as strict as my other. Their aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
A lot of my family were like, you can't watch a 12 until the minute you turn 12, sort of thing. I got delayed watching Revenge of the Sith till I was about 11.
So the legal trouble with this movie did not end there. One of the song choices in the movie, you know the scene where the nun, originally there was a rap song. Yeah. And it was
rap number.
One of these rap numbers. I can't remember the intricacies of it, but essentially they had to swap it out. They changed it to the choral organ.
Yes, which is appropriate.
When I say a rap song, because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That is so. And apparently it was shot very
hip hop style.
like 90s MTV, which is.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He must have been doing a lot of cocaine.
One
that
of the
day.
song choices gets swapped out for the choral orchestra. And essentially, there was a sample, I think this is, I'm remembering, the sample in the rap, one of those rap tunes was a Led Zeppelin song.
Oh, they don't like you using
Now,
that.
Led Zeppelin sued, or Led Zeppelin's legal team sued Abel Ferrara, which, again, I can't be bothered to get into the specifics of it. But Abel Ferrara of the situation had to say, quote unquote, I'll strangle that cocksucker Jimmy Page. So,
Based.
yeah, that tells you everything that you need to know. And getting
funny as
more
well.
into the outrageous quotes
Yeah,
of
give me
Abel
some
Ferrara,
quotes.
we get into Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans.
Fuck's that? It's my lucky crack pipe.
You a crazy motherfucker.
You don't have a lucky crack pipe?
Hell yeah.
What the fuck? We're not going to talk about this for too long, but
it stars Nicolas Cage and Eva Mendes. Eva Mendes plays the Zoe
Lund
character. It's not a sequel. It's not a remake.
Well, it's directed by Werner Herzog.
For some reason, it's directed by Werner fucking Herzog.
When you're out in the countryside and you see chicken, try to look a chicken in the eye with great intensity. And the intensity of stupidity that is looking back at you is just amazing.
And he maintains that this is not, as you've said, a remake or a sequel, but shares the common theme of a corrupt police officer. And both were produced by a man named Edward R. Pressman, who produced...
See, if you strip it away, I will say this, if you strip it away from the Ferrara movie, it's not bad. It's kind of campy. It's violent. Nick Cage is fucking awful.
Yeah, I just think
his voice switches halfway through.
Oh my
And then
God.
it switches back because he got lockjaw.
You should drop dead, you selfish cunt. You ever think about your kids? Or your grandkids? Huh? Sucking up their inheritance through that fucked oxygen tube?
To me, it's just a bad cop procedural, and I
Yes, it's very
cannot
much that.
fucking stand the 2000s cop. Like, you remember movies like Fear.com? It was just like, it was
Yeah.
such an easy, like, post-Saw.
Yeah, it
like,
was-
thanks, James. And
Yeah.
obviously, post 9/11, we were very into torture. We were very into cops save the day sort
Yeah.
of thing. And to me, it's just a bad cop procedural. Apparently, Herzog said that he'd never seen Abel Ferrara's movie and campaigned quite heavily for Bad Lieutenant to be removed from the title.
Okay.
However, this was rejected.
How come?
I'm not sure. I think it was just brand recognition. But
Is that a movie you really want to associate
No.
with? But again, it's weird because he didn't write it, Herzog. Because obviously it shares themes. They switch out baseball for football, which again
it's just
doesn't make sense because
rubbish.
it's not a series.
I said to you, obviously the fact that it is called Bad Lieutenant is a severe hindrance to the movie, but the fact that they say it's not a remake nor a sequel, but there are a lot of very, very similar
Well, it just keeps
plot beats.
referencing it.
Yeah, and
It just keeps on referencing
I
it.
don't get it at all. I don't understand what...
They have the car scene, but this time he rapes the girl, or the girl.
Well,
it doesn't even feel like rape. The girl just trades sex. Like, I'm sure it's sexual. I don't know the terms of it, but she doesn't seem. She's like fucking him, and he makes the boyfriend watch. And
It's so
it's
weird.
so
He's just
weird
like an
and tame.
unhinged cop, but like in a very weird...
And he still tries to do the right thing at times,
he's
which
a
makes
good-
no
he's a
sense.
good-
Yeah, and at no point is there any like the themes are completely different because it ends with him becoming captain. He keeps getting promoted. He keeps doing well, and it's like Bad Lieutenant is set over 4 days
Yeah.
of just the end of a man's life.
It's just... I
Yeah,
didn't get it.
I didn't mind it. There's some great Cage moments in it. If you like Nick Cage,
What are these fucking iguanas doing on my coffee table?
There ain't no iguana.
Yeah, there are.
There ain't no iguana.
What the fuck is that? Fucking iguana.
Don't seek this out.
no, especially if you like Bad Lieutenant. Don't
Well,
bother.
You'll be surprised to hear that Abel Ferrara said, quote unquote, as far as remakes go, I wish these people die in hell. I hope they're all in the same streetcar and it blows up.
Yeah, fair.
Which, that's pretty much how I feel
Yeah.
about it. I just
He
dislike
reminds
the
me of
movie.
like Paul Schrader and
Oh,
people like that.
but watching the interviews, he is just like a New York guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's like Irish, Italian, American. He speaks exactly how you imagine he would speak.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, apparently Werner Herzog said he'd never seen the movie, and they finally met at a film festival in Switzerland, and apparently Herzog sort of initiated a conversation, and Ferrara expressed his frustration cordially.
Oh, fair.
So I think they don't really give a shit, but yeah, I feel almost bad for Werner Herzog that it is called Bad Lieutenant, because I would never have watched it because it's not... Again, I don't like cop movies,
yeah.
but Bad Lieutenant is just... I mean, we haven't even talked about it. The whole reason I watched this movie is because he hangs dong.
Oh, he does hang at hella dong.
He is so jacked in this movie.
Yeah, not Nicolas Cage.
Oh, sorry, back to actual Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, he hangs dong.
He hangs dong.
And he's jacked. He's
Awesome.
like 55.
You were like, he's in his like mid-30s, early 40s. I was like, babe, I promise you he's old. And you were like, no, he's so young. And I'm like, I don't think he is. 50 fucking 3 and he
it's
looks like
crazy.
this.
He is crazy.
He is so good in this movie. And even if you like Christopher Walken, I can't...
No.
He is not right for this. Harvey Keitel, when he's like crying, you're like,
Yeah.
this man is like just so broken.
Going back to Herzog, can I quickly tell my favourite Werner Herzog story?
Yeah.
Have you heard this?
No, and then we'll get into
Yeah, and then
the quiz will be returning.
And the quiz is returning.
Woohoo!
But Werner Herzog, there's an interview of him at a film festival and like a panel, and he's talking about John Waters.
Mm.
And he'd known John Waters for years at this point. And he says to his wife, he's like, you know, I really like John. We should have him and his wife over for dinner.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think he's gay. And he's like, oh. And then he's like, oh, see, I don't see when people are homosexuals. I don't understand. And it's just like, he's like fine with it, but he just like did not know John Waters was gay. So
Literally
good.
the gayest man who's ever lived. Great. But again, this feels very much in the vein of a like exploitation, like it's very subversive.
This is my favourite genre of movie.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call this like an erotic thriller, but we watched Showgirls last night. I absolutely love a nudie 90s moody.
Yeah, what are we watching tonight?
We're rewatching Basic Instinct, which is again one of my...
Is that also Verhoeven?
It is Paul Verhoeven, yeah.
And what's the other one? Lethal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. The 90s love...
Oh, and Indecent Proposal, which is another one of those.
There's so many, like, erotic thrillers that came out around this time. Like, so much nudity, so much sex, and, like, yeah, it's just, like, my favourite movie.
Those are your favourite movies. Do you know what your least favourite movies are?
Cop movies.
Cop movies. And today, The Quiz returns.
It's been a few weeks. We haven't even had time to... Tenet was just an exercise in misery.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't going to quiz you on anything in Tenet. The whole fucking episode was a quiz. We've got 5 crooked cop movies.
Everybody's a crooked cop, huh?
And not crooked cops, just like, what's weird when the police are bad?
Bad Lieutenant.
Bad Lieutenant. Yeah, those sort of movies.
Yeah.
And I've got the IMDb plot summaries.
Go.
Number 1. A rookie cop spends his first day as a Los Angeles narcotics officer with a rogue detective who isn't what he appears to be.
Spiral.
Spiral from the Book of Saw is not. I'll give you some hints.
Yeah, can you give me a hint?
What do you
this
want?
is not my genre, so you're probably going to have to hold my hand a bit.
Do you want
Los Angeles narcotics. Can you give me someone who's in the movie?
Dr. Dre?
Dr. Dre?
Yeah, do you want another person who's in the movie?
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg.
Tales from the...
No, it's a good movie. I like this movie.
I don't know. Do the right thing? No, that's not LA.
Got, if I give you it's 2 leads. One of them won the Oscar for it. Neither of them are Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg aren't the leads. 2 leads, 1 white, 1 black.
Total Recall.
No, it's got Denzel in it.
I take it he's the one that won... I actually don't know.
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke?
Oh, no. Training Day. You've never seen Training Day?
Never even heard of it.
You've never heard of Training Day?
This is not my genre.
Oh my God, this is not your genre. 0 for... That is the most famous one of them all.
Training Day?
Never heard of Training Day? Oh, it's awesome. I watched it when I was a kid. Number 2, an honest New York cop blows the whistle on rampant corruption in the force, only to have his comrades turn against him.
Have I seen this movie?
Yeah.
Spiral.
No.
From the Book of Saw. That is what happens.
He blows the whistle on corruption. No, I do not want to listen to your spin, Dax.
Serpico.
Serpico. Crooked Cops.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
Number 3, a detective must work with an orc to find a powerful wand before evil creatures do.
What? Orc?
An orc, yeah.
What, like Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. Written by Enemy of the Pod.
Max Landis?
Yeah.
Is that the plot of the movie?
Yeah, it's Star Wars. Also, there's a tweet where he says about this movie, I've finished the script, this might be my Star Wars.
Yes, so true.
So true.
American Ultra.
No, it's Bright.
Oh, God.
With Will Smith and Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, awful.
Oh, you got 2. 1 for 3.
I got Serpico.
1 for 3. Let's go 4. An undercover cop and a mole in the police attempt to identify each other while infiltrating an Irish gang in South Boston.
The Departed. Did not like that movie
Oh, this
either.
movie's so good.
Oh, no, I
the
didn't.
FBI are like mushrooms. We feed them shit and keep them in the dark.
Fucking racist Marky Mark.
Okay,
Hate
last
him.
one. When a debt puts a young man's life in danger, he turns to putting a hit out on his evil mother in order to collect the insurance.
Oh. I was going to say,
I know
Only God Forgives.
I know you've seen this and I know you like this.
Killer Joe.
Killer Joe is
Oh,
correct.
we should watch Killer Joe. It's so good.
That's Friedkin, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, right. When I suggest movies to Calum, I'm like, you should watch this. He's like, nah, whatever. And I was like, we should watch Bad Lieutenant and cover it on the podcast. And then I've been bullying you for months and months and months.
Yeah.
You will love Killer Joe.
Yeah, we'll watch it.
It's so good. This is a recommendation to anyone listening to the pod. Check out Killer Joe. It's so
It's got
much
McConaughey
fun.
in it.
All right.
I've got a bonus question for you.
Ooh, okay.
You've got to keep eye contact
Spiral
with me at
from
all
the Book of
time.
Saw.
Can you spell lieutenant?
Lieutenant.
Well done.
Is that right?
It is right.
Oh, yeah.
Correct. She is smart. She's smart, this
Am I
one.
smart, really? I did terribly on that quiz. How many did I get?
You got
3?
2 out of 5.
3, didn't I?
Oh, you got 3. You got The Departed.
The Departed.
So yeah, check out Bad Lieutenant if you've got a strong stomach.
Yeah, you.
We're
maybe?
doing some new films next week.
Yeah, we're gonna do The Bike Riders,
Which
and
we've seen, which is great.
yeah, go and watch
Go
it.
and watch the. Oh, I think I saw a tweet today that's like, oh, it's already been pulled from cinemas. It's already going on streaming after 10 days.
No.
Yeah. So well done, everyone.
Oh, I love this movie.
It's really, really fucking good. You should go watch it.
Yeah, and we're going to cover Kinds of Kindness as well.
Yeah, we're seeing that tomorrow night.
We're going to do a double bill because, again, we both really like The Bike Riders, but I don't really have much to say to cover it on a whole episode, but we'll do a double bill of
Kinds
new
Kindness,
movies.
the new Yorgos movie.
Yeah.
Go check out our Poor Things eps before.
Let's hope I like it more than that. I am not sure. It's 2 hours and 44 minutes. That's
Hell
asking
yeah.
a lot of me. I just hope there's loads of sex in it. That's going to
I don't know anything about it. The trailer's really good.
Again, the trailer's great because it doesn't spoil the entire fucking movie, unlike Abigail
And I'm
every other
excited.
new movie.
I'm excited. We'll go see that tomorrow. Tenet comes out.
Keep an eye out for our Letterboxd for our little
Yes.
sneak preview. I always post them on my TikTok, so if
Yes.
you
You'll
want to
get
check
our
it out
thoughts on movies.
before the podcast comes
Head
out.
over to both of our letterbox. I think I'm Callum House on there or something.
I
but
think-
we'll add it to fucking the link tree.
It's already on there.
It's already on there.
Already done it. So go check out all of our previous work. Thank you so much for listening.
Go
as
check
always.
out the Tarantinos and go hit them like because I really want to. I'm still shilling these Tarantino episodes because we spent so much fucking time on them.
Do you know what? I already have forgotten about them and I already feel physically sick even thinking about them, so they're just gone from my brain.
Well, go check them out anyway. Have a good week, everyone.
Have a great week and we'll speak to you soon.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
I don't like these movies.
Get real.
Dude, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times.
Just consume fun. I watch my movies. Yeah, my movies are just
so much fun.
Oh, this movie's too complicated.
So once again, no smoking, just theater.